You did everything right. You went to school. You worked hard. You avoided stupid risks. You saved money. And yet, somehow, you still feel stuck. Rent keeps rising. Groceries cost more. Owning a home feels impossible. Retirement feels like a fantasy. So, what happened? Because 30 years ago, doing exactly what you're doing now would have worked. Today, the middle class is shrinking. And it's not an accident. Let's break this down. First, what even is the middle class? Traditionally, it meant stability. A house, a car, a vacation once a year, enough savings to sleep peacefully at night. You didn't need to be rich. You just needed to feel secure. Now, look around. Most people aren't building wealth. They're surviving. And survival is not the same as stability. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. Wages stopped keeping up. For decades, productivity increased. Workers produced more value than ever. But wages, they barely moved. Meanwhile, asset prices exploded. Homes, stocks, land, businesses. If you owned assets, you won. If you only had a salary, you didn't. And that's the first crack in the middle class. Let's imagine two people in 1995. Person A buys a modest home. Person B rents and saves cash. Fast forward 30 years. Home prices triple. Rent skyrockets. Cash loses purchasing power due to inflation. Person A built wealth simply by owning. Person B worked just as hard, maybe harder, but owns nothing. Same effort, different outcome. Because the game changed. Now let's talk about inflation. Inflation isn't just prices going up, it's your money losing power. If your salary increases 3% but housing increases 8% and healthcare increases 10% and education increases 12%, you're falling behind. Quietly, every year. And the scary part? It doesn't feel dramatic. It feels normal. That's how systems shift without people noticing. But here's where it gets deeper. Who benefits from inflation? Governments with debt, corporations with pricing power, investors holding hard assets. Who doesn't? People holding cash, people living paycheck to paycheck, people without ownership. The middle class traditionally relied on wages and savings. But in an asset-driven economy, wages don't create wealth. Ownership does. Now, let's talk about debt. Debt used to build assets. Today, debt often funds survival. Credit cards for groceries. Loans for education that may not increase income. Car payments just to commute to work. Instead of debt accelerating wealth, it traps people in cycles. And while households drown in consumer debt, corporations borrow cheaply to buy back their own stock, which drives prices up, which benefits shareholders, which widens the gap. See the pattern? Here's another uncomfortable truth. Technology didn't just create opportunities. It concentrated wealth. A single software company can now dominate globally with minimal staff. One platform can replace thousands of small businesses. Automation increases efficiency, but reduces bargaining power for workers. The result? Higher corporate profits. Fewer secure middle-income jobs. Gig work replaces careers. Flexibility replaces stability. And stability is what the middle class was built on. But wait, if things are so hard, why do we see luxury everywhere? Why do social feeds look wealthy? Because debt is invisible, and because wealth concentration is extreme. A small percentage owns a massive portion of assets. The rest are financing lifestyles through payments. The illusion of prosperity hides the erosion beneath it. Here's the real shift. The economy moved from income-based mobility to asset-based mobility. In the past, you could climb through labor. Today, growth flows primarily to capital. If you own businesses, stocks, real estate, intellectual property, your wealth compounds. If you trade time for money, your income is capped, and costs compound faster than you do. That's why it feels like running on a treadmill. You're moving, but not forward. Now, let's address the psychological layer. The middle class believed in a promise. Work hard and you'll be fine. When that promise weakens, frustration grows. People blame themselves. I should have studied something else. I should have invested earlier. I should have worked harder. But zoom out. This isn't just individual failure, it's structural change. When housing becomes an investment vehicle instead of shelter, when education becomes a high-risk financial gamble, when healthcare costs can bankrupt families, the definition of middle shifts upward, and many fall below it. So, is the middle class completely disappearing? Not exactly. It's splitting into two paths. Path 1, asset owners. They leverage debt to acquire appreciating assets. They understand compounding. They participate in markets. Path 2, income dependence. They rely solely on wages. They save in cash. They consume more than they invest. The gap between these paths widens over time, exponentially. Because compounding is not linear, it accelerates. Now here's the part. Most videos won't tell you. The system isn't going to fix itself. Policies may shift, markets may fluctuate, but the structural advantage of ownership remains. So, what can you actually do? First, shift mindset from saver to owner. Saving protects. Ownership multiplies. Second, understand inflation as a force. Cash is a tool, not a strategy. Third, acquire appreciating assets consistently. Not perfectly, consistently. Fourth, build income streams not tied purely to hours. Skills that scale. Digital assets. Equity. Because if wealth grows through leverage and compounding, you need to participate in that engine, not stand outside it. Here's the paradox. The disappearance of the traditional middle class creates opportunity for a new kind of mobility. Information is more accessible than ever. Markets are more accessible than ever. Ownership barriers are lower than in history. But financial literacy hasn't caught up, and most people are still playing by old rules, working harder in a game that now rewards different behavior. Let's be clear, this isn't about doom. It's about awareness. Because once you understand the shift, you stop measuring success by salary alone. You start measuring by assets. You stop asking, how much do I earn? And start asking, what do I own? That question changes everything. The middle class isn't vanishing overnight. It's transforming. The old blueprint, stable job, pension, lifelong security, is fading. A new blueprint is emerging. Ownership, leverage, financial intelligence, adaptability. Those who adapt rise. Those who don't feel squeezed. Not because they failed, but because the system evolved. So if you feel like you're doing everything right but not getting ahead, you're not crazy. You're witnessing a shift most people haven't fully processed yet. The rules changed. Quietly. And now you have a choice. Keep playing the old game. Or learn the new one. Because the future won't reward effort alone. It will reward ownership. And the earlier you understand that, the more powerful your position becomes. The middle class isn't just disappearing, it's being redefined. The question is, which side of that line will you stand on? If you want the next video, we can break down how to transition from income to ownership, step by step. Because understanding the problem is powerful, but positioning yourself for the shift, that's life-changing.